Welcome everyone to our Monday night shiur. We're back after Tisha B'Av.
We made it.
We made it, yes. Of course we're going to make it. And before we start, our shiur is La'ilun Nishmat, one second, Mazal Bat Rachel and Zivug for Ariel Ben Rivka. And also for La'ilun Nishmat, Harav, Talmid Chacham, Tzadik, Chacham Yisrael Chaim Matayev. I want to say one thing about him before we start. Unfortunately today, fortunately or unfortunately, it's like non-stop all these campaigns for tzedakahs. You could get sometimes 5 of these a day. And Am Yisrael is Rachmanim B'nei Rachmanim, and we always give tzedakah. The Gemara said, Rabbi Chaya, the nephew, the uncle of Rav, and the student of Rebbe, he had a wife. And not the nicest woman. Well, she went through a very tough labor twice. And when he was one day sitting at home, he wasn't the richest man. He was gone from the house for long periods of time. Rabbi Chaya. The Gemara said if it wasn't for Rabbi Chaya, the Torah would have been forgotten by Klal Yisrael. How? Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was in Eretz Yisrael. That would be the difference between if Rabbi Chaya was there or if he wasn't there. Even with Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, it would be the Torah considered forgotten. So one day Rabbi Chaya is in his house and he's eating the meal. Now before the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, the Jews used to have a minhag. Josephus says this. Flavius. He writes in Yerushalayim, the Nikiyei Adat, as they called them, used to have a minhag when they used to dine, they used to have a meal. So with that, they used to put a curtain on their door. A curtain. They used to take a curtain and put it on their door from the outside. So Flavius says that was the sign that if anybody was poor, it was a sign that they could come in and enjoy from the meal. Rav Victor Miller writes, there was never a nation even remotely close in their charitable ways as the Jewish people. Not even remotely close in the world. But unfortunately, after the Chorban, the Jews lost a lot of their property. The Romans took it. Esav's children, we're going to talk about the 7 kings of Esav today. I'm going to reveal to you secrets that you've never heard before in your life. Because we're getting to Elul right now, I want to give you guys an introduction, how to get our tefillot answered, and what kavanot we're supposed to have. So Rabbi Chaya was poor. He had some parnasa. And one day a poor man knocks on his door while he's having a meal, and his wife tells him, listen, we have not enough for everyone, maybe, you know how sometimes people knock on the door, we don't answer? So he said, trick or treat. Trick, not treat. Lahavdil. You can't. Let's just let him pass. Rabbi Chaya says, don't you dare. Open the door and give him something. Why? She said. The Gemara answers. Look at the Gemara's words. It says Rabbi Chaya says because Chas Shalom one day if our children won't be in his place, that people won't throw him out of the door. Because the world is a galgal. One time you're up, one time you're down. And everything works midah keneged midah. So if you want rachamim, you have to give rachamim. If you're not going to give it, you're not going to get it. Everything is mi madad sha'alo mayim. Hashem v'shamayim bezeret tiken. Hashem does everything to the millimeter, to the millimeter. So even though we get a lot of these campaigns, and unfortunately sometimes we delete them because we give. And the Gemara says, thank God, in the world there are liars, there are thieves. They say they need tzedakah, but they really don't. The Gemara in the Yerushalmi says, thank God for those liars. Because if it wasn't for them, if we wouldn't give, we would be held accountable. Because of those liars, we have a pitchon pen shamayim to say, we thought that they're just, who knows, everyone give. So it's a good thing there are even those thieves have a purpose in this world. Kav zechut. But today I got this campaign from this charity campaign, Chesed Fund, from a good friend of mine that we learned in Kollel together for many years. And I don't know. Usually I don't pay attention, but I asked him suddenly. I asked him, Mize, who is this? And he said to me, it's Bal Shulchan HaMelech. It's a book that we used to learn in Kollel when we used to study for our Rabbanut test. We used to use his books. And he said, this is him. He passed away from cancer a month ago. I was shocked. Right away I said it to the chat. I sent it to my family. Right away we gave tzedakah. And this person, which we're also making Lu Nishmatot, this our shiur tonight, Chacham Yisrael Chaim Matayev, he was, if you look at his Sfarim, he has approbations over there from the chief rabbi of Israel, Rav Shlomo Amar. Mamash, this book is called Shulchan HaMelech, the book of the Table of Kings. It goes in the Table of Kings. All the halachot, Shulchan Aruch, Bet Yosef, everything put down in the right order. Shach, Tas, Pitchet Tshuva, Ba, Shcham, all the poskim. You know what kind of work it takes to do? When we used to sit to do one halakha, remember we used to sit up to make one, we used to answer one question, it used to take us sometimes 2 hours just to find the source here, and the source there, and the source there. Such a work. And the Gemara says, Kashe silukan shel bachurim yoter mechurban Beit HaMikdash. It's worse in Shamayim when the death of young Jewish men than the Churban Beit HaMikdash. In Shamayim, they're machshiv the death of young Jewish men more than the Churban Beit HaMikdash. More. And especially a Talmid Chacham, who was a Baal Mechaber Sefarim, and especially that he left 8 Yetumim, 8 orphans at home. And whatever I'm doing right now, it's not even considered a eulogy. This is nothing what I'm saying. It's not even, whatever I'm saying, it's not even comes close to what the respect we're supposed to give Talmidei Chachamim when they pass away. The Gemara says in the time of Masechet Yevamot, time of David HaMelech, there was famine for 3 years. Famine. You know what a famine for 3 years is? The rivers are dried up. There's no water. It's not like today we bring the water with the, Today in Israel they have technology that makes water out of thin air. In the Kotel they have it. Where is he? You saw it? He's not here. You saw that? But the Kotel, when you go in to the right, I remember when I was there last time, it's like an air conditioner and it makes clear water. The air conditioner makes water. It condenses the water out of thin air. And back then, there was no such a kind of thing. They had to, when they wouldn't have water, they used to make like a fast, like Tisha B'Av, and they used to say 24 blessings in that prayer. And they wouldn't stop praying until Hashem would send the rain. Look what kind of Nikiyei Dat they were. One time Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol gets up to daven, Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol, Ben Hurkonos, which the Pirkei Avot says he would be machriya all the Talmidei Chachamim in the generation. On a scale, he would outweigh all of them. Rabbi Eliezer Ben Hurkonos. He davened for the Amud, for the rain. Mashiv Ruach Moed HaGeshem, Ein Kol ve'Ein Oneh. They said, Rabbi Eliezer, Shin, have a seat. Who did they send up? His student and colleague, Rabbi Akiva. Mashiva Ruach. Wind. Morid HaGeshem, Bababam. Hitchilu Ha'am. The nation started to lerechosh, to speak. Oh, the student is greater than the Rebbe. Rabbi Akiva said, guys, Uspa Goizer. Where the place where Talmidei Chachamim do things, don't put your heads inside. It's not that I'm bigger than Tzaddik and Rabbi Eliezer. It's just that I'm ma'avir on my midot and he's not ma'avir on his midot. When it comes to my kavod, even when I'm entitled to ask for kavod, I still give up. But Rabbi Eliezer, as a true Talmid Chacham should be, when he's entitled for kavod, he demands it, like the way it should be. The Gemara has a big discussion. Who's right, Shammai or Hillel? Shammai in the Pirkei Avot, right? We learned Pirkei Avot. Everyone's favorite Mishnayot. What does Shammai say in the first perek? Heve mekabel kol adam besever panim yafot. Shammai says this is the chosen. How many Devar Torahs do you think Shammai Hazaken made in his life? Right? How many Devar Torahs Shammai Hazaken? Maybe tens of thousands or maybe millions. Flavius says when the Talmidei Chachamim used to give a shiur, there wasn't a room, there wasn't a building that would hold the masses that used to come and hear their shiurim. They had to sit in the temple courtyard. Thousands of people used to hear, men and women. There was no Amma Aretz back then. The Amma Aretz was Talmid Chacham like today. That's what kind of Amma Aretz they used to have. Shammai Zaken had many sayings. Why did they choose this saying that Shammai Zaken said? Accept everybody with a happy face. You know why they chose it? Because that was the saying.
Who he was.
That's who he was. But how come in the Gemara we see that Shammai Zaken is just the opposite? He's a kapdan. He's very particular. When the ger comes to him and he says, teach me the Torah, convert me on the condition that you teach me the Torah on 1 foot. Not that he was actually on 1 foot. Basically, give me the Torah chik-chak, inzman. Parnasa. So, Shammai Zaken tells him, what? And he throws him out of there. Pashli, get out of here. Wait a second, you just said Shammai Zaken, the saying that that's who he is. He would accept everybody, v'sever parim yafot. And we see in the Gemara that he's throwing Gerim out of the window. The answer is that Shammai Zaken says, yeah, Talmid Chacham has to be v'sever parim yafot. But when it comes to the honor of the Torah, he has an obligation to uphold that honor. And he's right. Shammai Zaken, he's right or wrong? 100% right. Hillel HaZaken held a different approach. He said, even with the honor of my Torah, it's okay to trample on me. It's okay. It's okay. Do what you gotta do. And the Gemara says that Beit Hillel, the halacha was paskin like Beit Hillel. That Beit Hillel is right. Shammai is right, and Hillel is right. And Rabbi Eliezer, the Tosafot says in Nida, who is he a student of? Which house?
Shammai.
Beit Shammai. He's a Shamoti, the Tosafot says. Shamoti mi Beit Shammai. He holds you have to uphold the honor to have. But Midah keneged Midah, since you uphold your honor in Shammai, we uphold our honor too. You guys don't deserve rain? I'm not going to give it to you. The person who's going to give it to you is a person that holds like who? Beit Hillel. And already we see over here a secret how to get your prayers answered. If you want your prayers to get answered, you have to be like Beit Hillel. You have to give up that honor even though when you deserve it. Because midah keneged midah, just like you gave it up even though you didn't deserve it, so too they will give it to you too. Even though you don't deserve it. Because you give in, we will give in. Midah keneged midah. And we see that in Rabbi Akiva instilled that power of Tefilah, that midah. We didn't even get to Tefilah yet. The midah of Tefilah. That means when you approach Tefilah, the Ari HaKadosh, we're going to quote from the Ari tonight. We're going to quote from it extensively. The Ari HaKadosh says, how come the first Hasidim, the Gemara says Hasidim Arishonim, when they used to daven, they used to wait 1 hour before the davening. Daven for an hour, then they used to wait another hour afterwards.
Self-reflection.
When they used to go to davening, it was a whole experience. It was a ceremony. Hey, I'm going to davening right now. I need my prayers to be answered. I have to make teshuvah before I go to daven. I have to break my midot before I go to daven. I can't go to daven with jal, with anger. So if you wake up in the morning and you're late to davening and you leave the house with ka'as and you go to Tefilah, yes, you did your mitzvah of Tefilah. You did your mitzvah of Tefilah, but your Tefillot going to be answered. Midah keneged midah. Just like Rabbi Eliezer wasn't answered, is yours going to be answered? Why would it be answered? You don't give in, so how would they give in? So the Hasidim Arishonim, what are these Hasidim? Chabadnikim? It's not Chabadnikim. Hasidim Arishonim are tzaddikim in the time of the second Beit HaMikdash. When the Gemara says Hasidim Arishonim, these are tzaddikim, they are Talmid Chacham in the time of the second Beit HaMikdash. That's how they used to daven. He waits an hour, he davens, and he does that for an hour. He's a Hasid too. He's Hasidim Achronim. So when a person goes to Tefilah, it has to be an experience. It has to be an experience. Why am I saying all this? As an introduction. We're speaking about this Talmid Chacham that passed away. It says Am Yisrael, in the time of the David Amelech, there was a famine for 3 years, we said, right? 3 years famine. When they asked the Urim V'Tumim, the breastplate, how come there's a famine for this long? It's not normal, David Amelech said. One of the answers they said is because they didn't eulogize King Shaul when he passed away.
Oh wow.
When Shaul passed away, They didn't give him the respect a Talmid Chacham deserves when they buried him. David did eulogize him. He was running away from him. There was a war. He was in Philistine land. When he heard that Shaul died, his father-in-law, he ripped his shirt, he put sack on his head, and he make a thing inside the book of Samuel. He has a whole psalm over there. And the boy that said that I killed Shaul because he asked me to kill him because he jumped on top of his sword, he suicided, and then he was half dead. And the Plishtim, his neshama was coming, he says, take the sword, kill me quickly, and finish the job. And this kid took the thing and he finished him, Shaul. David HaMelech says, you killed Mashiach Hashem, and he killed the boy. He sentenced him to capital punishment for killing Shaul HaMelech. And even so, Am Yisrael, they were guilty of not doing hesped for Shaul HaMelech. That they had a famine for 3 years. So when we have a Talmid Chacham that passed away, and this was really a Talmid Chacham, we have to give him the honor he deserves. We have to mention him. And when he has 8 orphans at home, you know what 8 orphans is? Lo aleinu Am Yisrael, we should never even think of such a thing. 8 children at home. No more Abba. Who's going to walk into the chuppah? Who's going to marry them? Who's going to take care of them? Especially I heard that he was suffering from his disease that he had 2 years already prior. How much we have to be Rachmanim? Bnei Rachmanim. There were people in the time of David HaMelech called Giv'onim. You know who Giv'onim are? In the time of Joshua. Yoshua bin Nun. There was a group of Goyim, they were tricksters. They were called Giv'onim. They were from the Chivi. They said, the Jews, they knew the Jews cannot make treaties with them. They had to wipe them out totally. They acted like they came from a faraway land, and they tricked Yoshua to make a peace treaty with them. Yoshua cursed them for tricking him. He says, you convert, okay, you convert, but you can never marry with the Jewish people. You have to work for us. You will be woodcutters and water drawers. Until the time of David, they were with Am Yisrael as one nation. Until David came and he said, these Giv'onim, they're not part of Am Yisrael. We have to separate them completely. Why? Because a Jew has 3 elements. Ger, Gomle Chasadim, Baishanim, and Rachmanim. We do chesed, we're bashful, and we're merciful. And anyone who doesn't have one of these 3 attributes, Lo mi b'nei Yisrael. He's not part of Klal Yisrael. There's something wrong with his lineage. All 3 he has to have. All 3 he has to have. There's something wrong with his yichus. Something over there went wrong. So when you see such a campaign, you have to open up your hands to give about that. I'm not saying this because I'm soliciting or anything. I'm doing this because it's mamash mitzvah. Especially now is coming Rosh Hashanah. In 2 weeks we're going to have Elul. And we need the more zechuyot for this upcoming year. Just this year alone, we had a war in Israel. We had Meron, we had Karlin, we had Surfside. Now we have Delta, the Delta variant. But we get used to it. We have something called Shechecha. You know what Shechecha is? Hashem put it in our brains to forget. We forget. We get with the flow. We go with the flow. You know Rav Breitowitz. You ever heard of Rav Breitowitz? Rav Breitowitz says a very interesting thought. He says, how come the Jewish people can never forget the Chorban Beit HaMikdash? For the love of God, it's been 1,953 years. We're still sitting every Tisha B'Av. You know, I saw a video in Israel. Some shuls have a minhag to clothe their whole heichal with black, and they put their Sefer Torahs on the floor. They have a source for this. I saw the source. It's Masechet Smakot. Some shuls used to have this kind of custom, and some shuls in Israel they do it. They open up the Torah and they put it on the floor like this, and they all sit around it and they cry with the Sefer Torah on the floor. 1,050. Rabotai, how come we don't have the Shechicha when it comes to Chorban Beit HaMikdash? Till today, people will cry over it. My wife said, I was never had the zechut of being at Tisha B'Av by the Kotel HaMa'aravi. My wife was once there by Kotel HaMa'aravi at Tisha B'Av. She said, it's a sight to behold. You get more Yirat Shamayim than when you would go to the Kotel on the Shalosh Regalim. People are literally sleeping on top of each other, crying their brains off by the hotel. It's packed to no thing, and at the end, everybody holds each other. Chilonim, Datim, Chardalim, Charedim, Gerim, everyone together, and they're singing together. And there's really achdut. I told you guys at the Shabbat, what the Gemara meant that there is sinat chinam in Klal Yisrael because that the Churban was destroyed. It's not what you think it is. There's never been a nation that loved each other with all the hatred in us. But there's never been a nation, never will be a nation remotely close in loving each other as we do. Never. With all the 12 million Hasiduts and the 5 million tribes of the Sfaradim and this and that. There will never be a nation remotely close to Ahavat Chinam as us. Remotely close. So what do you want? We should all open up our houses and say, come sleep in our bed. Well, what kind of Ahavat Chinam you want already? You have to think about it in the right way. We started talking about Tisha B'Av. Right to it says, how come we can't forget Tisha B'Av? And he brings a story from the name of the Khatam Sofer. The Khatam Sofer, something, I heard this, it shook me to the core. It shook me to the core. Khatam Sofer says, remember when the brothers, the Gemara and Avodah Zarah says, the length of the Galut, the length is because of the selling of Yosef. The hardship of the Galut is because of the Egel HaZahav. Every time Surfside, Karlin, Karona, all this, we're paying back a little bit of the Egel HaZahav. We're paying a little bit back, slowly. Every time that Tisha B'Av passes, we still don't have a Beit HaMikdash. The Gemara says something crazy. You guys all read Tikkun Chatzot at least once during this Ben HaMitzarim? At least once you did during midday? Okay. At least once in your life you did Tikkun Chatzot?
I think so.
Once, you think so? Okay.
During the day.
During the day. You know what we add in the Ben HaMitzarim? We say at the end something scary. It's good to read it. It's good to understand it. Every generation that the temple, that the sanctuary hasn't been restored, it is as if it has been destroyed in their day. So Rav Menachem Asher Weiss, one of the Gedol Ador, says something scary. He says that's not what really the Gemara says. The Bala Machzor, he tweaked it a bit, not to make us feel so bad. You know what the Gemara really says? Not it is as if it was destroyed in his days. It is as if you destroyed it in your days. Every generation, this is what the Gemara says, the temple hasn't been restored, it is as if you destroyed it. Not as if it has been destroyed. That's already Chatzi Nechama. But it is as if you destroyed it. That's how we have to look at the missing of the sanctuary. I say this to people all the time. I go to their house, first thing I look for, do you have a bookshelf? How do you have a Jewish home without a library of Torah? That's number one. One time I came to somebody's house, do Chanukat Habayit, religious guy. I come inside, I said, "No, where's your books? Where's your Sfarim?" He opens up one drawer of the Sirvan. You see over there, old Chumash Mishnat Antiochus. He says, "Here, vehement true story." He said, "This?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "What? What? This is a thing? Take up the Sirvan, Bukharin said, Sirvan. But what do you have the Sirvan for? Take the Sirvan to the garbage. Put a Sfarim over there." One day your kid's gonna grow up, he's not gonna have anything to do, he's gonna be sick on being his phone. He says, maybe I open up one book on the shelf, he'll take a book and suddenly boom, he's gonna have a Yirat Shamayim. You don't know. I always tell you guys this story. I went to yeshiva, we used to learn over there, Mesilat Yesharim. One day I was in college, I was, college, we have fun. So I was looking for Mesilat Yesharim, I was sick of it. I said, open Mesilat Yesharim, couldn't find it. In the bookshelf was Sharei Teshuvah, Rabbeinu Yonah. Never read it before in my life. That was the first day I opened it up. Mamash, Yirat Shamayim. It changed my life. It was in the bookshelf.
In the library?
In my father's library. My father's a big library. You see how... So anyways, that's the first thing I look for, the bookshelf. Second thing I look for, if a person owns a house, you must leave in your house a part of your house without paint. Zecher lechorban Beit HaMikdash. I say this to people, they laugh in my face. Over here, I bought a book for the shul. See that book's over there? It's called the Tzitz Eliezer. He was with Rav Ovadia Yosef's best friend. They used to learn in Kollel together. On the bottom, there's a book called Moed Kol Chai, Rav Chaim Falaji. One of the greatest Sephardic sages. Rav Chaim Falaji says in his book Moed Kol Chai, he says, any house that has problems in it, check if they don't have that part in their house. Zecher leChorban Beit HaMikdash. Check. He says, Garrett, that's not my words, I'll open to you now. I guarantee it's because of that.
Wow.
When I got my apartment, first thing I told the guy, I said, right across the door. Not on the top of the door, right across. So you go in. Whoever's been in my house, they know. You see it right when you come inside. It hits you like a bullseye. Don't paint it. Leave it. Ama alama. 1.5 by 1.5. You have to leave it without paint. That's the halakha. Zecher leChorban Beit HaMikdash. People, they get married. Why do we break the glass? Zecher leChorban Beit HaMikdash. And my rabbi told me when I got married, Goyim, lahavdil, the day before they get married, where do they go? I don't want to say.
Clubbing.
I don't want to. Clubbing, that's chatzi nechama. They go to somewhere else. Lo alein, lo al chal Yisrael. I know one Bukharian guy. Chiloni lagamre. He married this Jewish girl. No, I wouldn't say super religious, but she had some values. They got divorced at the end. What does he tell her? On their wedding night? Last night, my father took me to the. I don't want to say.
To the joint.
Beit Haboshet. Beit Haboshet. Where have we gone to? To what extent? The day before I got married, I was up till 3 in the morning going from one rabbi's house to one rabbi's house to one rabbi's house learning Torah. I learned Rabbi Kleinman that day, with Rabbi Moadeb that day. We went to this rabbi, that rabbi. It was the day before you get married. It's the most, it's supposed to be a very, you're becoming mamash, you're getting your nishamana. You're becoming a full human being. Before you're married, you're Chatzi Ben Adam. Person who's not married, he passes away, is not putting saying Kaddish on him. The next second, he's coming back in a Gilud. No Techiyat HaMetim. The next second, he comes back. The next second. And what do we do when we get married? That's what Rav Tzion Bracha used to say. What do we do on the day of the wedding? Right after we finish Sheva Berachot, this, that. I remember I asked my rabbi, all people who are getting married should know this. I asked him, I said, I want to give kavod to some people under the chuppah. I say the brachot. He said, kavod to some people? Do you know what these brachot are? They're the future of your life. You're going to give it to a guy, it's Mechalel Shabbat. You're going to give it to a guy, this, that. You have to give it to a people who are Yirat Shamayim. Sitting over there, one guy, he's saying, Baruch Atah Hashem. Instead of saying, Bre Pri HaGefen, he says, Bore Minem Mizonot, he says over there. Under the chuppah. Or he's sitting over there under the chuppah. I'm kaf zechut, of course, but there's a time and place for everything. There's 7 days to give Sheva Berachot. But under the chuppah, in that moment, there's a time of Yirat Shamayim. It's a time where everything, you know, Rav Salman Mutzafi says that his wife, Rav Salman Mutzafi, this is a Yehuda Ptaya's student, his wife used to see the souls of all the deceased relatives on the day of the wedding. She used to talk to them, hello, like this, in the wedding. All the grandchildren knew already. And she wouldn't allow to start the wedding until she used to see all of them. Like this, in the night of the wedding. That's what kind of Kiddusha comes down over there. What do we do under the chuppah? Zecher leChorban Beit HaMikdash. What do we do? Right after everything, all the we take a glass and we break. Why glass? Why not? Let's take something gold. Let's smash it. Let's take a hammer. One guy, I remember, Ashkenazi, he didn't have a glass cup. He took a plate. The poor guy tried to break it for 5 minutes, trying to break, didn't break. One guy I knew, he got married in Israel. He broke the glass cup, and the glass went into his shoe, ripped his foot, his ligament. Poor guy had to go to the hospital right after the chuppah. You see the kala over there crying. They got divorced at the end. They got divorced with kids. 3 kids they had. Got divorced. That was the sign.
That's already.
That was already mashu lo beseder po. Why do we break glass? No joke. Why do we break glass? Why not anything else?
Because you can really form it again.
Because glass, we could always recreate it. It has a takana. So too, Klal Yisrael always has takana. No matter what kind of shalom bayit problems the person goes through, there's always a takana. You give up. If you give up, you have to.
Give up your position.
But there's one more. Not give up like that. Give up your position. There's one more thing that we're supposed to do. Zecher l'chadash. Bukharians don't do this. I did it. And one of my rabbis told me before we got married. He said, make sure you do this. Ashkenazim are makpid in this. Sfaradim not so much. Let's make sure you do this. This is a big sigura for Shalom Bayit. What? Under the chuppah, right before they start the chuppah ceremony, take take the match, take a little bit of the ether of the ash, and you have to say Zecher leChorban Beit HaMikdash. Why do we do this? In the time of the Beit HaMikdash, you know what they used to put on top of the grooms? They used to put on their heads a crown of, like, you know, the Caesar used to have a crown with like leaves like this. Like this used to put on top of the chatanim. It's called Keter Atarat Chatanim. They used to call it. When the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, they made a couple of takanot for Am Yisrael. One thing takana was chatanim cannot wear crowns anymore. Instead, we put the ash. Unfortunately, many people don't tell the chatan to do that.
I've never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
Nobody
Does. That's the problem. That's the problem.
I don't see Ashkenazim.
Not all Ashkenazim are chazakim, but many people do it too. Hasidim, special. Hasidim. I did it.
They're super classy.
Sfaradi. Now, when the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, Chachamim forbade music.
For what? For the wedding or in general?
In general, you're not allowed to hear music
On the wedding?
for 1,953 years. You're not allowed to hear music. According to the halakha, you're not allowed to hear music. Since the Chorban Beit HaMikdash, you're not allowed to hear music. When the Chachamim saw that the Jews couldn't hold themselves in this takana, they couldn't hold it. Bakoshi, hetiru lahem, they allowed them music in the weddings. Bakoshi. Today, who remembers the Chorban? We have to remember it every single day. You know what the Jews were in time of Beit HaMikdash? Open up the Josephus. Open it up. Look at the splendor of Yerushalayim. Open up the Gemara. What was the splendor of the Jewish people? Zahir Kililat Yofi. We had prophets walking. We had Nazirs walking in the streets of Yerushalayim. The beauty, the Gemara says Jewish women wouldn't grow hair on their body.
Natural.
Everything was natural. The Kedusha. There was no hair. No such thing as bodily hair. They had. But the Khorban must have hit us the strongest. Yeah. It must have hit us the strongest. What are we losing with the Khorban? You know what? We're losing everything. That's why Kol Dor Shalom Nivna B'Tash B'Yamav Ki'ilu Hu Ichrivo. It's as if you destroyed it. How do we bring back the Beit HaMikdash? This week's parasha, it says Ve'et Chanan El Hashem Ve'et Hahi Lemor. I pray, I beseeched God. Moshe says, I beseeched God on that day, saying, I beseeched him. Ve'et Chanan comes from the word Chen. I tried to find favor in his eyes. And Hashem said, Damshi. Bas. Al tosef daber elai od b'davar hazeh. Don't talk to me anymore about this.
Topic's closed.
Topic is closed. Everything is closed. There are sometimes the gzera has to come. I'm going to tell you guys a chidush right now. Do you know why Hashem destroyed the Beit HaMikdash? The second one. He allowed it to happen by Esav. You see, you guys know some of the story. What the Esav, Rome. One of Esav's descendants is Magdiel. Magdiel is Rome.
That's Rome.
Yeah, is a Roma. Why Bukharians name their kids Roma? I have no idea.
No idea.
Okay, Roman. Not just Roma. Roman.
From Yudan, Rabbi Yudan Nasser came from Esav, no?
Who?
Sami Gaba came from Esav,
Okay.
not from the Romans.
There was a king, Marcus Aurelius, that converted to Judaism.
No, but and somebody came from Esav, no?
Rabbi Meir Baal Hanes.
Yeah.
Rabbi Meir Baal Hanes was a descendant of Nero Caesar.
Okay.
Nero
See
Caesar.
how it's close.
The Nero's wife, Nero started the whole Korban.
Yeah.
He started the whole thing. Nero's wife, her name was Pompeia. Pompeia. She liked the Jewish people. She convinced Nero to convert. She convinced him to go before he's going to destroy the Beit HaMikdash. The Gemara says the whole story. How he kept on saying that, asking for the pasuk from the kids. And the kids kept on saying the pasuk that I will destroy Yerushalayim by Esav. Then I will destroy Esav. Nero's like, I don't want to be the one, in charge of this. And whatever he did with his wife Pompeia told him, run away. The history writers, they say that he killed himself or he disappeared, but really the history writers, Cassius, there was a history writer Cassius, he said there was sightings of Nero in Italy afterwards. There were sightings of him.
Right.
What happened really? His wife told him, go convert. And he converted, and out of his descendants came out Rabbi Meir Balanes. Now Nero is right before the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. Rabbi Meir Balanes is 2 generations afterwards. That means Rabbi Meir Balanes is the grandson of Nero. The and all our Mishnayot is Rabbi Meir Balanes. That means everything comes from Nero. But the Gemara says, why did Vespasian destroy the Beit HaMikdash? Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, when he came to Vespasian, now Josephus, the Rasha, he claims he was the one that came to Vespasian and said, he prophesied you will be the next emperor. We all know from the Gemara that this guy was a kook. Shyster, exactly. So Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, when he came to him, he said to him, how are you going to destroy such a beautiful city? Romans loved architecture. And Beit HaMikdash was the beauty of all the architecture in the world. So he said, how are you going to destroy it? So Vespasian said, if you have a keg of honey, this is the Gemara, if you have a keg of honey and you have a serpent coiled around it, how are you going to kill the serpent without destroying the keg? You have no choice but to destroy the keg. And Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai didn't answer him back because he knew he was right. Who was the keg? Who was the serpent?
The lefty, the one that
The lefties, the liberals, the Tzedukim, the Sadducees, the Hellenizers, the first fathers of the Reform movement.
all the bound Jews are Jews.
And after the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, you never hear of them again. Until our famous German friend, Moses Mendelssohn, Shem Rishayim Yerkav, and he restarted the Reform movement. And of course we have the big Rasha, Herzl, who didn't give his kids a Brit Milah, and he started the Zionist movement. So now we are in the biggest fight of our lives, the religious Jews, against these two sects of Judaism. And of course, Reform gave birth to modern Orthodox, open Orthodoxy. Today I read a article in London. 2 Orthodox Jewish women are getting married, and who's officiating the marriage? An Orthodox rabbi.
Female.
A male Orthodox rabbi. They're called open Orthodoxy. What have we gone to? I want to know.
Open Orthodox.
Why are you calling yourself? We're open. We're open about our bodies.
We accept everything.
We accept everything. Everything goes.
How are you different than the left?
You know, Flavius says when Titus destroyed the Beit HaMikdash, he took 97,000 captives. Under 17 years old, the most beautiful kids in Yerushalayim. What did he take them for, the Romans? For
Rabochi,
you know those guys with the flag? Male concubines.
Personal gain.
They like that.
Male concubines. All this comes from Rome, and they took it from the Greeks. That's their culture. And we, instead of spitting at their culture, they're showing we're as different than them, we always try to make ourselves like them. To look like them, haircut like them. There's a whole siman in the Shulchan Aruch. You're not allowed to do the chukot of the goyim. What's the first siman over there? What's the first seif? Haircuts. And what's the haircuts? It brings 3 different haircuts. One of them is the famous haircut of today. You shave it over here up and you leave over here. The famous one. Everybody thinks this haircut. It's skin fade. Skin fade. And then there was the haircut of the Chinese monks. You know how they used to have the haircut? They used to shave everything till here. And then they used to grow their hair, everything from here on. You know what I'm talking about? From the half of the head, like this. It's pure avodah zarah. The Shulchan Aruch brings it down. Or the mohawk. The mohawk, like this, brings it down. It's chukot hagoyim. Chukot hagoyim. And the Gemara says you're not allowed, back then, you're not allowed to even dress in red. That was the goyim's color.
Man too, yeah?
Huh? Men, talking about women, forget about it. Men I'm talking about, not allowed to dress in red. Today we're allowed to dress in red because everybody dresses in red. Why are you holding the red back? Pasuk says, "Ve'etchanan Hashem beit hari," and I beseeched God, I asked for favor in his eyes. What was the favor that he asked him? Let me go inside Eretz Yisrael. For what? What did he want to go there? To enjoy the great pasture and the luscious lands and the beautiful mountains of Yerushalayim? He wanted to do the mitzvot, the tluim ba'aretz. He wanted to keep Shemitah. He wanted to do truma. He wanted to do maaser. For 40 years in the desert, 38 years God didn't speak to Moshe. 38 years God didn't speak to him until everyone died from that generation.
Wow.
Did you know that?
No.
Did you know that?
No.
Now you know.
So it's first and last year. First and
First
last
2 years and the last year God spoke to him. Unless he needed to know a halakha.
So what we read in the Torah, there was 38 years.
That's it. The 38 years we have no that was just studying of Torah, constant study. You wake up in the morning, eat man, go to yeshiva, study Torah.
nothing really happened.
Okay.
Nothing happened. Everybody was good boys. That's why Moshe was so upset when Shimon messed up at the end. Simeon, the tribe of Shimon. He was so upset at them, Moshe. The Midrash says he was raging. Moshe was raging at them. We had such a good record going on. And then you come and you mess it up. You know how Moshe cursed? He didn't curse them. He didn't bless them at the end. In Zota Beracha, he skips them. Shimon doesn't have a portion in the land of Israel. You know that, right? They never got a piece of land.
Outside? Nothing?
Nothing. Judah donated some land to them. And then they kicked them out afterwards.
Judah did?
Yeah, they kicked them out. The whole tribe of Shimon were destined for poverty. Because you can't be angry when you're poor. What do you have to be angry about? What do you have to be egotistical about? Who owes you? You have nothing. Who are you? All of the tribe of Shimon was destined for poverty. Because of what? Anger. Because of anger. But I want to tell you something about Tefilah. Promise you Tefilah. We'll give you Tefilah.
Here we go.
The Ari HaKadosh says in Olat Tamid, this book was found in the Geniza. The Chaim Vital buried this book. The great-grandfather of the Chida made a She'elat Chalom and he asked him, can I dig it out? Can I dig it out?
I didn't know they had it.
They knew that he buried some books with him. In his tomb, he buried the books, the Sfarim with him. He felt nobody was worthy enough to learn it. What happened was when Rabbi Chaim Vital, he had a couple of students, but he never allowed them to disseminate the learnings of the Ari. And everybody really wanted to learn the Ari because they still remember the Ari. One day Rabbi Chaim Vital gets really sick, and this is how all the Balagan came out. Rabbi Chaim Vital gets really sick, and there was a rabbi there called also Yehoshua ben Nun. This is his name, Yehoshua ben Nun. He bribed Rabbi Chaim Vital's brother, Rabbi Moshe Vital, to get 500 sofers and to copy all the Ketuvim of the Ari while he's sick in bed. He took all of his brother's Ketuvim, and like this, in the big Beit Midrash, they all said, guys, before he gets up from his bed, start writing. Now imagine how many mistakes you're going to make when you're copying that fast. Look at all the works of the Ari. That's all that over there. And there's more. There's more. This book is not over there, for example. You know how fast they were writing? You know how many mistakes? You know where those books went? To Europe. To Europe. That's where all the different minhagim came over there. The Ari said, Ari never said these things. When the Ashkenazim came to the Sfaris, the Ari said this. Like, what are you talking about? The Ari never said these things.
I don't even know the truth if it's mistake.
The son of Rabbi Chaim Vital, Rabbi Shmuel Vital, he did get the Ketuvim. Not all of them. The original ones. The original ones, you understand? And like this, it was passed down from Rabbi Shmuel Vital, Rabbi Moshe Zachuta, until it got to the Rashash. Rabbi Shalom Gadaev. And then there was a cherem in the yeshiva. Nobody could take the works of the Ari and the Rashash outside the yeshiva. Exclusive club. And then there was one student, the Sadeh. He decided, I'm going to print the Sidurs and I'm going to disseminate it. They put him in cherem and they kicked him out of the yeshiva. He opened up his own yeshiva in Shchonat Bukhari. Shlomo Musayef was the first one who gave him the money. He opened up his big yeshiva, and all the students of Kabbalah today are his students, and all of their students disappeared into memory. The Bukharians were the first ones to open up the Yeshivat Mekubalim of the Sadeh inside the Shchonat Bukhari. Because when they came from the Bukhara, from the Samarkand, they were always saying, they had such reverence for the Kabbalah that when the Sadeh needed money to open up his yeshiva, they right away gave it. And who was his students at the Sadeh? Rabbi Yehuda Ftaya was his student. Rabbi Salman Mutzafi, Rabbi Kafa Chaim was his student. All the big disseminators of Sfaradim, they come from the Sadeh. You understand? So this is how it spread in the beginning. Now, this book, he says like this. He says, Talmud Torah keneged kulam. The learning of the Torah is the greatest mitzvah. It's keneged kulam. But he said the tikkun of the last generation is not in Torah.
Tefilah.
It's in Tefilah, says Rav Chaim. Why is it in Tefilah? For this, I have to give you a small introduction. Before there was the Sfirot, the emanations of God, called Chesed, Givurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchut, they had different names. They were called, instead of the 7 Sfirot, they were called the 7 kings of Edom.
Right. Chagai.
7 kings of Edom. Why were they called the 7 kings of Edom? Because Hashem created those 7 original Sfirot full of klipa in them. No. He created them, and this is all in the world of Atzilut. That's the highest world, that's Shmuais. Before the world of Atzilut was called Atzilut, it was called Olam HaNikudim. Remember Yaakov Avinu saw in his dreams the goats? They were Akudim, Nikudim, Berudim. What was he seeing? He was seeing the whole Etz HaChaim.
Was the round world? Was it the round?
The speckled, the dotted, and the squared. Nikudim are the spotted. Why is it called Nikudim? Because they were Nikudot.
Yeah.
Nikudot means tiny points. Point. What's a tiny point mean? They were not fully matured yet. You ever have a grape when it's not fully matured? How does it taste?
Sour.
Sour, disgusting, right? It was sour, bitter. That's the klipa. The Kiddusha is compared to milk and honey. What's milk and honey? Sweet, refreshing. The world of the Nikudim, these 7 kings of Edom, had another attribute in them which don't exist anymore. They were all standing in one line. In one kav, in one line. That means, under the Sfirah of Da'at, what his original name was Bela, or Bil'am, that was Bil'am's neshama from there, was right away Chesed, Yovav ben Zerach was the name. Really, under Da'at, your Da'at is over here, you have what Sfirah next? What's this Sfirah? What's this? Tiferet. Here, the middle line is Da'at, Tiferet, Yesod, and Malchut. But originally they didn't stand like that. This was the reason why they broke. They stood all Bechat Samcha. What beings in this world today also stand Bechat Samcha? In one line? Huh?
We do.
Angels. That's why angels can't reproduce. Because to reproduce, you have to stand in 3 lines. Chokhmah, Chesed, and Netzach. Bina, Givurah, and Hod. Da'at, Tiferet, Yesod, Malchut. They didn't stand like that originally. They stood under Bela, which was Da'at, was Chesed. That means Chesed then gave straight to Gvurah. But Chesed and Gvurah, they don't match. That's why one of the halachot that we have is that we're not allowed to interbreed. When you interbreed, you're mixing God's emanations together when they're not supposed to be mixed. When a goy, Rav Shalom, marries a Jew, or you take an animal that's with a different species of animal, you take 2 plants and you're mixing them up, you're basically recreating the forbidden world called Tohu Vavohu. That's what the Chumash means, V'ha'aretz hayta Tohu Vavohu. Under Chesed was Gvurah. Gvurah's name was Chusham, Me'eretz HaTemani. Under Chusham was Tiferet, which was called that back then Hadad ben Bedad. Why was it called Hadad ben Bedad? Dad in Hebrew is the bosom. Tiferet has a bosom. Our chest is a replica of the Sfirah of Tiferet. Under Tiferet was Netzach and Hod, which was Samla Masreka. Under Samla was the Sfirah of Yesod, and this is the neshama of Shaul HaMelech, and this is why Shaul HaMelech's kingship didn't last, because this is where his soul came from. This Sfirah was the original name of the Sfirah of Yesod was called Shaul. Shaul Merechovot HaNahar. What was the Rashash's book's name, the Rav Shalom Gadaev? Rechovot HaNahar. Why did he call his book that name? To fix the original Yesod. And under the Yesod was the Sfira of Malchut. We believe it or not, its name was Baal Hanan. Hanan. That was the name of the Malchut. To create this world of Biriyah, Yetzirah, and Asiyah, God shattered these 7 worlds. How did they shatter? Since they were dots, they were nikudot, they couldn't hold the light. They didn't want to share. They didn't want to share the kingship. They didn't want to stand in a 3-column system. They wanted to stand, everyone, I will rule myself. Chesed wanted to rule himself. So when Chesed got the light from Dot, how many lights did he get from him? Inside the Dot, where does our seed come from? From our mind. In your Dot is all the DNA of a human body. So the Dot broke. Da'at, instead of giving to Tiferet, gave straight to Chesed. Now Chesed could only hold the light of Chesed. But what did it really hold now? All 7. So it's 7 times its power. He couldn't handle it. And he shattered. Gevurah then got the next 5. He couldn't handle the power. That's why it's called Chusham. Chusham Chamesh. He had 5 lights in him. Of Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut. And he shattered. Tiferet couldn't handle, he shattered. Netzach Hod couldn't handle, shattered. Yesod couldn't handle, shattered. When it got to Malchut, it only had how many lights left? How many powers? Only 1. Why did it shatter? Because the Malchut can't even handle 1 light. That's why a woman is like a moon. Let la megarma klum. She has nothing from her own. Even if she's making the money, even if she's more successful, all that is bischut, the husband. Everything. That's why a woman that got divorced, that got both of her husbands died, she can't marry the 3rd time. Even if she's rich. Even if she's rich. Isha katlanit it's called. When the Malchut broke, now, what was broken in the world of the Nikudim, which is Atzilut, actually was creating things down here.
Go back again?
What was breaking up there, the shattered pieces, when they came down, was actually creating this world. We are the shattered pieces of those original 7 kings of Edom.
Which is the Big Bang.
That's the original Big Bang. How many pieces dropped altogether? 288. Exactly 288 sparks. But not 288 sparks. Enough to fill a void of 6,000 years. That's why the big tzaddikim, they wait for Mashiach. But they know Mashiach is going to come in the year 6,000. When all the 288 sparks will be finished, and then Mashiach is going to come and there will be no more death. Because what is death? It's the breaking of the vessels. When the vessels will be totally fixed,
There is no.
how do we recreate those vessels in a fixated way? It's the first mitzvah in the Torah. Puru, having children. That's why God put so much emphasis on getting married and having children. Because without that, you cannot recreate anything. But the problem is, to get the neshama, those sparks, we're all made out of 288 sparks. This is made out of 288 sparks. Everything is. To get those sparks, you have to select it. It's like taking a diamond out of the dirt, or a gold out of the dirt. That's why on Shabbat you can't do borer. Because on Shabbat you don't need to select it. It's already ready for you. That's why Kabbalistically you're not allowed to do selecting on Shabbat. You can't do borer. Because there's nothing to do borer from. Everything is kadosh. That's why tzaddikim would only be with their wives on Shabbat. Why on Shabbat? Because they don't have a choice. Everything is good. Take chatov ve'echol. Chatov ve'echol. Some tzaddikim, for them Shabbat, the Torah you learn on Shabbat is 10,000 times stronger. The mitzvot on Shabbat 10,000 times stronger. On Shabbat, dibur chol asur. Because when you speak dibur chol, you're putting the klipa inside the kedusha. You're recreating the destruction of the 7 vessels. Now here is the secret. The 2 mitzvot after Pru Urvu is the materialization of the 288 sparks. But the 2 mitzvot that takes them out the strongest is Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. Why is it Keneged Kulam? In Talmud Torah you have all the mitzvot. So when you learn Torah, automatically you're doing such a bombastic berur that you're doing a huge, what we call aliyat man. If you had eyes to see, you would see thousands of sparks flying up as we're learning Torah. That's why the Zohar says, when Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai used to learn Torah, if a bird would fly on top of him, it would burn. It was shish kebab.
Yes.
He didn't need to make ala ish. Straight shish kebab. Why? Those fires that was on the top of his head was the Torah. That's why in the aura, when they take a picture of a guy learning Torah, his whole aura turns purple and white. He's in a state of total kedusha right now when he learns Torah. Rabbi Chaim ben Atar, the Or Chaim HaKadosh, says in Parshat Bechukotai, I believe, is if a person would know the sweetness of Torah, he would go crazy in love with it. If he would be able to feel it, it would be like a drug to him. He would be unable to stop. But the problem is that Talmud Torah does the berur only in quantity, not in quality. The greatest selection, listen to this, of those 7 kings is in Tefilah. And the tikkun of the last generation, says Rabbi Chaim Vital, is in Tefilah. How do you do that tikkun? When the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, when they put together our Tefilah, the Tefilah was put in an order, so you start off what we call Klipat Noga, and you climb up. But when you climb up, if you skip a step, you're stuck. You're stuck. If you miss a Tefilah, it's like I made a book, I did the front cover, I did the back cover, but I'm missing the middle. What is Shacharit, Mincha, and Aravit? It's the front, it's the middle, and it's the end. It's the back. If you're missing one Tefilah, it's like you created a child without a head. On this, the Gemara Masechet Brachot says, "Me'uvat lo yachol litkon, v'chesron lo yachol." If you miss a Tefilah, you can never make it up. You can never make it up. So if you know the secret of Tefilah, you're able to pick up those Nitzot from those 7 kings to create such a bomb in Shamayim. Now everything you pick up, you get right away back down. Whatever goes up must come back down. So when you're davening like Kasha, you get it back. When Rabbi Akiva davened, when he gave in, he got it back. When Rabbi Eliezer davened, he got what he got back. How do you daven the right way? You have to know what you're doing when you're davening. You have to learn the secrets of Tefilah. Rav Mordechai Sharabi used to say, when there's 100 people davening with Sidur Ha'ari in one spot, Muftach li Mashiach will come. When there's 100 mitkavnim in one place, and the problem is there is 100, how come it doesn't come? Because they're not really doing kavanot. They think they're doing kavanot. They think. Some person once asked me, says, I see you davening during the week, takes you 2 minutes, Shmoneh Esrei. How come on Shabbat you finish the last one? It's only 7 brachot. If you knew the power of what's going on in the Tefilah of Shabbat, you would spend more than on a Tefilah on Yom Kippur. The Tefilah of Shabbat is so powerful, it's the highest zivug. You're creating children. Abraham and Sarah used to create neshamot of what? Gerim. How do you do that kavanah? So it's a bit dangerous. But I will tell you what the Ariyah Kadosh says. To get down, to get those sparks, you have to die. But you don't actually have to take a gun and put it to your head. A Jew is where he thinks. If you think that you're dying by skila, srefa, Hereg v'chet, you actually did it. Why do we have to take upon ourselves 4 deaths? Because there is nitzotzot of how many olamot? 4. If you miss one of the deaths, you cannot be mivarer the nitzot of that world. So you're stuck.
When you say Ba'ava, yeah?
When you say, every time you say, Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, you have to do 4 mitot bedin.
Every bracha?
When Tefilah you say Echad, 4 mitot bedin. Be'ahava, 4 mitot bedin. Now after you do the 4 mitot bedin, this is where the hard part comes in. Now you have to have kavanah to pick up the 288 sparks. How do you pick up those 288 sparks? You have to know their names.
All 280?
Yeah. You have to know the 200. They're not actually 288 letters. They're 4 names of Hashem. And these 4 names combined equal 288. It's 72 times 4. Give me a Siddur, please, and I will show you guys where everyone in the Avodat HaKodesh could see those. And by the way, Rabbi Chaim Vital in Sefer Chezionot says all the sicknesses in the world comes because people missing their 288 sparks that they were supposed to do. Because every day they have a certain amount that you're supposed to pick up. So when a person gets sick, he missed it that day. You get it?
What page?
So open up this Siddur in the end, page 958. Look at page 958, and you see, after Rofeh Chole Amo Yisrael, there's 4 Shemot over here, 4 lines. Forget about the bottom part. Now here's the tricky part. This kavanah, most people don't know, doesn't start from the top. It starts from the bottom. Gabriel, it starts from the bottom.
Bottom to the top.
You gotta start in the bottom.
Wow, left or right?
Huh?
Wow, left or right?
Where you see Malchut the Malchut, you see Malchut the Malchut, you see that?
Okay.
That's where we start. I'm not gonna teach you the whole kavanah right now because we have some sleepers over here.
It's very heavy meat to digest.
I'm not sleeping.
I'm not sleeping.
I'm not sleeping. I'm not sleeping.
I'm not
Let's go this dairy for a whole week.
After 120 years, you're gonna kiss me over there for teaching you this.
It's heavy.
If we find it.
Huh? If you find it,
We'll
yeah.
kiss you right
I'll
now.
find you, don't
I
worry.
don't need to go. I just.
We see where it says Malchut the Malchut, that's where it starts. First, you have, now, the Nikudot.
This is after the Shemona.
Why are we called Nikudot? Because they were all spheras of Malchut. They were all female worlds. They wanted to rule, feminism. It doesn't last. It doesn't work.
Voy a volver.
You see where it says Malchut the Malchut?
Yes, it's the bottom.
First kavanah you're supposed to have is to pick up the nitzotzot from the worlds of Malchut. So, the world of Malchut, the nitzotzot, are 72. How 72? They are represented with the letters Yud, Yud K, Vav, Yud K Vav K. Anytime you have a name like that it goes by multiplication, Yud, then Yud K, then Yud Vav K, it's major deen. Rebbe, it's major deen. That's why it's at the bottom. That's why it's Malchut, the Malchut.
In the world.
After you have kavanah to pick up those sparks, you go up to the Malchut of the Sfirot of Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. We're working from the bottom top. So the Malchut de of Taf is Tiferet, Nun is Netzach, Hey is Hod, and Yud is Yesod. They all come as a team. They're team players. There are 4 of them. Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. And they're represented by Yud K Vav K, which is how much? 26. And Yod K Vav K Shema, which is 45. 45 plus 26 is how much? Mathematicians?
45 plus what?
45 plus 26?
71.
71. Thank you very much. We go up another level.
Level up.
This is the hardest one. Because this we're introduced, sometimes you don't pick up the numerical aspect of the name, but the actual letters.
It's a long one.
So it's 2. You see, you have 2 Shem Sags, 2 63s. That's 63 plus 63 would be how much? 126. That's too much. We need 72. So the first one, you see, it says Otiyot. You're picking up 10 letters. You're only picking up the 10 letters. The second part is the mispar. What's mispar? The actual number. That's 63. 63 plus 10 is how much? 73. Thank you very
What
much.
do you mean by you picking up? Can you?
But when it's 72?
Those, the sparks.
How?
The sparks that fell from the Gvura are Shem Sag, 63, and the 10 letters of it. Not just the numerical aspect of it fell, but the actual letters fell with it.
How do I count that? Just having just.
You have to have kavat to pick up Shem Sag and the numerical aspect of Shem Sag. And the last one is Malchut de Chesed.
That's like.
Malchut de Chesed. Malchut de Chesed is straight Yod. K, Vav, K, 72. 72 plus 73 plus 71 plus 72 is equal to 280.
You lost me on sock.
This kavanah has to be made
When?
every single step of your life. You're making your front. You want your burgers to be delicious. Release the schnitzel. Have these names plastered on top of your wall. While you're flipping the schnitzels, have those names. Because that's what they're made out of. You're made out of these names. No, they're not deep. It's deep because you want it to be deep.
It's deep
It's
because
time we wake up.
You have to sleep, buddy.
Release the schnitzel.
Release.
You gotta wake up from your dream. You want your tefillah to be answered? Whatever you pick up is whatever you're gonna get back. Now, if you cannot,
Wait, a person cannot get his person to prayers answered without this stuff in my level.
I want to ask you a question. You want to shoot a regular handgun or you want to shoot a missile?
Laser.
A bazooka. This is the bazooka. This is the small bazooka.
Then there's the Rashash.
Is it made just for this bracha?
Atomic
Huh?
bomb.
This kavanah, if you could, have it 3 times. After you take upon yourselves the 4 deaths in Echad, Shema Yisrael Shem Echad,
Okay.
pick up these shemot. That means all the whatever you're gonna have that day, you're picking up in Echad. All what you're gonna get that day is in this.
Shmon Esrei also counts?
And in Shmona Yisrael, try to have it when you after you do yourself Arba Mitot Beitin in Be'ahava.
Yeah.
Now, if you know somebody who's sick, let's say you know somebody who's sick, unfortunately. When you say, look at the top, Baruch Atah Hashem, Rofeh, Chole, Amo Yisrael. What's the first letter of Rofeh? Reish, 200. Chet, Chole, 8, 208. Ayin, Amo, 7. How much we have so far? 278. Yisrael is Yud, 288. Have kavanah that guy who's sick, the reason he's sick, because he didn't pick up his 288 sparks. He did so bad that it's totally deep down that you're going to pick it up for him.
You have to say the name.
No, you have to think. You're not allowed to say any name. You have to think of it. Everything is in the machshava. Remember, what you could do in your machshava, the greatness that you could do, now also think what you do in your machshava when you think bad things. It's a two-way street. I know it's hard. Me too, it's hard. But if you remember this one rule that Chana HaNevi'ah said, the mother of Shmuel, Ki nafalti, kamti. I fell and I got up, Hashem orli. While Hashem still gives me life, no matter how many times I fall, the next second you have to get up. Don't ponder the Avera. Don't ponder it. You fall,
It's time.
right there. Now, if Moshe Rabbeinu would have made one more tefillah, Hashem would have been forced to bring him in Eretz Yisrael because he picked up so much of the Rabach Nitzotzot that the Geula had to come. But Hashem said, it's not your job to finish it. It's their job to finish it 6,000 years late, 3,000 years later, when you're going to come back as Mashiach Tzidkenu. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.